The first time I noticed the stains, I pretended they weren't there. You know the kind. That dull yellow ring hugging the inside of the toilet bowl like it has paid rent. The kind that doesn't scream for attention at first, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. At my cousin's house in Ohio, everything looked clean: fresh towels, scented candles, spotless sink, but the toilet told a different story. It wasn't disgusting. It was worse. It looked old. And that's when the uncomfortable thought hit me. How many times had that toilet been cleaned? And how many times had it failed to stay clean? At first, my cousin laughed it off. That thing's been there for years, she said casually, like she was talking about a scratch on a coffee table. Years. That word stuck. Years of scrubbing. Years of chemicals. Years of those blue toilet tablets promising miracles. And yet, the stains were still there, quietly winning. That's when I realized something most people don't want to admit out loud. Toilets don't get dirty overnight. They age, slowly, invisibly, and by the time you notice, the damage feels permanent. The next morning, I watched her clean it, gloves on, brush in hand. She poured in a strong-smelling cleaner, the kind that makes your eyes sting, and scrubbed like she was angry at the bowl itself. 5 minutes passed. 10. The water turned cloudy. She flushed, and there it was, still there. Faded a little, maybe, but definitely not gone. She stared at it, annoyed, then shrugged. It's clean enough, she said, but the toilet didn't look clean. It looked tired. And that's when I started wondering something that changed the entire way I look at cleaning forever. What if scrubbing isn't the solution? What if scrubbing is the problem? Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Those yellow and brown toilet stains, they're not dirt. They're not poop. They're not even grime in the way we think about grime. They're mineral deposits, hard water, calcium, lime, rust, tiny particles that bond to porcelain over time like concrete. And once they bond, brushes don't scare them. Chemicals don't intimidate them. They just sit there, unbothered, waiting for the next scrub that does absolutely nothing. Most people respond by scrubbing harder, stronger cleaners, more effort, more money. But every time that fails, the toilet wins a little more. And slowly, without realizing it, people accept stained toilets as normal. It's old, they say. It's just hard water, they say. You can't fix that, they say. And that lie spreads quietly from house to house. But here's where the story turns. Later that same day, my aunt, who had been listening from the kitchen, said something that stopped everyone mid-conversation. Why don't you just use the pantry stuff? She said it so casually, like she was suggesting salt and pepper. Pantry stuff. We all looked at her like she was joking. Pantry items are for cooking, not toilets. Or so we thought. She smiled, the kind of smile you give when you know something others don't, and said, I haven't scrubbed a toilet in years. That sentence landed heavy. No scrubbing. Years. Same stains. Same hard water. And yet she sounded confident, calm, certain, not like someone guessing, like someone remembering something old that everyone else forgot. And that's when she said the words that triggered everything you're watching right now. People stopped using it because it's too simple, too boring, but it works. At that moment, curiosity took over. Because when someone claims they haven't scrubbed a toilet in years and they don't look embarrassed saying it, you listen. Especially when they're talking about a forgotten pantry item. Not a cleaner, not a brand, not a product with fancy labels. Something cheap, something sitting in kitchens across America, ignored. She wouldn't tell us right away. Instead, she asked a question that hit harder than any sales pitch. How long do you think those stains have been growing? Years? A decade? Longer? And then she said, give me one night, just one, and tomorrow, you'll think someone replaced the toilet. That sounded impossible. Too dramatic. Too good. We all thought the same thing but didn't say it out loud. One night doesn't erase years. That's not how reality works. Or so we believed. That evening, instead of reaching for cleaners, she reached into the pantry. No gloves, no brush, no effort. Just a small container that most people use for cooking or baking, not cleaning. She didn't scrub. She didn't even touch the stains. She poured. She waited. And then she walked away. That was it. No fizzing show. No dramatic reaction. No instant transformation. And that's what made it unsettling. Because everything we've been taught about cleaning tells us that if something works, it should look like it's working. Foam, bubbles, action. But this looked like nothing. And yet she smiled like she had already won. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if this was one of those old school tricks that disappeared because companies couldn't sell it? What if the reason no one talks about it anymore is because it doesn't make money? Think about it. A one-time pantry item that costs almost nothing and solves a problem permanently doesn't belong on store shelves with shiny labels. It belongs in stories, passed quietly, forgotten easily. The next morning, before anyone had coffee, we walked into the bathroom, and that's when the silence hit. The ring was gone, not lighter, not faded, gone. The bowl looked whiter than I had ever seen it. The water line was clean. The surface felt smooth, not chalky. No scrubbing marks, no chemical smell, just clean. The kind of clean that doesn't look forced. The kind that looks new. My cousin ran her hand along the bowl like she didn't trust her eyes. "This doesn't make sense," she kept saying. "I scrubbed this for years," and that's when it clicked. Scrubbing wasn't failing because she wasn't trying hard enough. Scrubbing was failing because it was never meant to solve this kind of problem. What happened overnight wasn't magic. It was chemistry, slow chemistry. The kind that works while you sleep, while you're not watching, while you're not interfering. That forgotten pantry item didn't attack the stains. It dissolved them. It broke the bond between mineral and porcelain quietly, patiently, without force. And here's the most important part. Once those minerals are gone properly, they don't come back the same way. That's why this works when everything else fails. Not because it's stronger, but because it's smarter. Now here's where most people mess up. They hear this story and immediately think, "I'll just try something similar." They grab vinegar, or lemon, or baking soda, and sometimes it helps. A little, but not like this. Because the timing matters, the amount matters, the way you apply it matters. And the biggest mistake? People don't let it work long enough. They interrupt the process. They scrub too soon. They flush too early. And then they say, "It didn't work." But the truth is, they didn't let it finish. In the next part, I'm going to break down exactly what that pantry item was, why it works when others don't, and the one mistake that can ruin the entire process if you're not careful. I'll also explain why some toilets respond faster than others and how to tell, just by looking, whether your stains are removable or permanent. Because once you understand what's actually happening inside your toilet bowl, you'll never scrub again the same way. And trust me, what comes next is the part most people skip, and that's why their toilets stay stained forever. That morning changed something in my head, but it didn't fully convince me yet. Because here's the thing nobody admits. When something works too well, our brain looks for excuses. Maybe the stains weren't that bad. Maybe the light was different. Maybe the toilet had been cleaned better before. We do this because accepting the truth would mean admitting we wasted years doing it the hard way. And most people would rather doubt a miracle than admit they were wrong. So instead of celebrating, I started asking questions. The kind of questions people don't like. How long exactly did it sit overnight? Did you flush at all? Was the water level normal? What if the stains come back in a week? My aunt didn't get defensive. She expected this. She said, "Give it time. The real proof isn't tomorrow. It's what doesn't happen next." And that sentence stuck with me all day. Because she was right. Anyone can clean something once. The real test is whether it stays clean without effort. Most toilet cleaners are temporary illusions. They make the bowl look better for a few days, then the stains creep back like they never left. That's because those products don't remove the mineral layer. They just bleach it or mask it. And once the minerals are still bonded to the porcelain, they act like magnets. They pull new stains faster, darker, and deeper. That's why some toilets seem cursed. You clean them, and they get dirty again almost immediately. Not because you're dirty, not because you're lazy, but because the surface itself has changed. It's no longer smooth. It's rough on a microscopic level, and rough surfaces collect minerals the way Velcro collects lint. This is where the pantry trick does something different. Instead of attacking the surface, it resets it, slowly, quietly, without scratching, without wearing it down. It doesn't rely on force. It relies on time. And time is something most people refuse to give cleaning. We want instant results. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, spray and wipe. But minerals don't form in minutes, so they don't disappear in minutes either. Later that week, I tested it somewhere else. A friend in Michigan had a rental property with a toilet so stained it looked permanently damaged. Tenants had complained for years. Maintenance had tried everything. Pumice stones, industrial cleaners, even sanding tools. Nothing worked without damaging the porcelain. When I suggested the pantry method, they laughed. Not because it sounded silly, but because it sounded too easy. That's always the red flag. We waited until the unit was empty. No one needed the bathroom overnight. Perfect conditions. Same setup. Same forgotten pantry item. Same patience. No scrubbing. No interference. The next day, the maintenance guy called me and said, "I don't understand what happened, but the bowl feels different," and that's the detail most people miss. Clean toilets don't just look clean. They feel clean, smooth, slick, almost like water doesn't want to stick to them anymore. That's how you know the mineral layer is gone. Here's where things get interesting. Not all toilet stains are the same. Some are surface level, some are deep set, some are mixed with iron, some with calcium, some with both. That's why one person tries vinegar and swears by it, while another says it did nothing. The stain chemistry is different, and most cleaners don't explain this because confusion sells products. Simple truths don't. The pantry item works across most of these cases because it doesn't target color. It targets structure. It breaks down mineral bonds regardless of whether they appear yellow, brown, black, or orange. That's why people think it's magic. It's not magic. It's just doing what scrubbing never could. But in this part is critical, it only works if you let it. Most failures come from impatience. People pour it in, wait an hour, peak, get disappointed, flush, and declare it useless. That's like taking bread out of the oven after 5 minutes and saying baking doesn't work. Overnight isn't a suggestion. It's the entire method. Another mistake? Water level. If the stains sit above the water line, the item won't touch them unless you lower the water first. That's something most tutorials never explain. Toilets aren't designed for soaking. They're designed for flushing. So if you don't adjust the environment, you're asking chemistry to do the impossible. That's why people think they tried everything when, in reality, they never gave anything the right conditions. Now let's talk about why this pantry item disappeared from modern cleaning advice. Years ago, before shelves were filled with colorful bottles, people cleaned with what they had. They understood time-based solutions. They didn't scrub porcelain aggressively because they couldn't afford to replace fixtures. They preserved surfaces instead of attacking them. But those methods don't create repeat customers. You use them once, maybe twice a year. That's not profitable. So slowly, quietly, those tricks faded, replaced by sprays that smell strong and promise speed. And speed became the new standard, even when it didn't work. That's why when people discover this trick today, it feels like uncovering a secret. Because in a way, it is. At this point in the story, you're probably asking the same question everyone asks. What exactly is this pantry item? And I know the temptation is strong to blurt it out. But if I do that without explaining the last piece, people will misuse it and then blame the method. Because here's the warning nobody gives. This item is gentle on porcelain but powerful on minerals. That means it will also react with certain metals if you're careless. If your toilet has exposed metal parts in contact with the bowl water, you need to be aware. If you mix it with the wrong cleaner, you cancel it out. Worse, you can create fumes that don't help anyone. That's why this method works best when it's used alone. No additives, no mixing, no shortcuts. One item, one job. Another thing most people don't realize, once the stains are gone, maintenance becomes effortless. You don't need to repeat the overnight soak every week. In fact, doing it too often is pointless. Once the mineral layer is removed, normal weekly cleaning keeps it from forming again. That's how you break the cycle. People who fail at this method often fail because they treat it like a cleaner instead of a treatment. It's not meant to be used constantly. It's meant to reset the bowl. Now let me tell you about the moment this fully convinced me. Back home, I tried it on my own toilet. Same results. Then weeks passed. No ring. A month passed. Still clean. No scrubbing. No effort. Just regular flushing and light cleaning. That's when it hit me. I wasn't cleaning anymore. I was maintaining. And that's a completely different mindset. Most people clean reactively. Something looks bad, so they attack it. This method makes you proactive. You eliminate the root once, then stop fighting symptoms. And that's why this trick feels unfair, because it exposes how unnecessary most of the struggle was. In the next part, I'm finally going to name the pantry item, show exactly how to use it step by step, explain how much to use, how to lower the water safely, and how to tell within minutes whether it's working on your toilet or not. I'll also show you how to prevent the stains from ever coming back even if you have extremely hard water using one small adjustment almost nobody makes. This is the part that turns curiosity into results. By this point, the question wasn't if the method worked anymore. The real question was why so many of us had spent years fighting a problem that never needed a fight in the first place. When I finally shared the exact pantry item with friends and neighbors, the reaction was always the same. First silence, then disbelief, then laughter, and finally that quiet sentence people say when something changes their habits forever. I already have this at home. That's the strange beauty of it. This wasn't a rare chemical or some hard-to-find solution. It was sitting in kitchens across the United States, forgotten, ignored, pushed to the back of shelves because modern life told us faster was better and stronger was smarter. But sometimes the smartest solution is the one that doesn't rush, doesn't scrub, and doesn't demand effort. It just works while you sleep. What surprised me most wasn't how clean the toilet became. It was how different it stayed. Weeks went by, then months. No yellow ring creeping back, no rough texture returning, no smell masked by fragrance. Just a bowl that stayed smooth and clean because the problem had been solved at the root, not covered up. And that's the part most people miss. This trick doesn't clean stains. It removes the reason stains exist in the first place. Once you understand that, everything changes. You stop scrubbing harder. You stop buying stronger chemicals. You stop blaming yourself or your water or your toilet's age. You realize the system was wrong, not you. The stains weren't stubborn. They were just bonded. And once that bond breaks, they're gone. Think about how many things in our homes we fight daily because we've been taught the wrong approach. We push harder instead of smarter. We repeat effort instead of fixing the cause. And toilets are just one example. This is why this simple overnight method feels bigger than cleaning. It feels like reclaiming control from problems that were never supposed to be permanent. If you're watching this right now and looking at your own toilet thinking, mine is worse, that's actually good news. The worse the stains, the more dramatic the result. And when you wake up and see that bowl looking lighter, smoother, newer without scrubbing, you'll understand why this trick refuses to stay forgotten once you try it. But remember this, don't rush it, don't mix it, don't interrupt it. Let time do what force never could. Cleaning doesn't always need action. Sometimes it needs patience. And once you see the results for yourself, you'll never look at that pantry shelf the same way again. You'll realize that the most powerful solutions in our homes aren't always the loudest or the strongest. Sometimes they're the quiet ones we stop paying attention to. So if this video made you look at cleaning differently even just a little, then it did its job. And if you want more real, tested, no-nonsense home hacks that actually work in real American homes, not just on labels, then you already know what to do, because the next one might fix a problem you thought was permanent too.